Hi, and welcome to Spirits, your bi-weekly news show from Dallas-Fort Worth about basically happy hour discussion with the new up-and-coming artists and new people on social media out there. My name is Kyle Condis, Kyle 1.0, it's Kyle 1, point spelled out P-O-I-N-T 0 on Twitter. And my guest this week is Mona Kasra, at Monism on Twitter. It's at M-O-N... Oh wow, I just messed it up.
M-O-N-A-I-S-M. Monism.
And so, Mona, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
So since the beginning, if you want, like going way back, originally I'm a graphic designer. That I started video art for my MFA when I started my MFA, and I fell in love with art making rather than doing design, which you usually do it for clients, and you have set of rules that you have to follow, and so I started doing that, and just video was my passion in art making. And I started doing autobiography kind of videos and installations. And after my MFA, and while I was finishing, I started teaching. Then back then I was living in LA, so I started teaching at Cal State Northridge and Santa Monica College. And I taught for 2.5 years. And I always wanted to go back to school doing PhD, but couldn't find a right program which allows artists to do the work. It's free for artists to research, but at the same time make art. So I would have loved to stay in California, but because of the family and friends I had, but the programs there were not something I would like to attend to. So after a while, I knew Dean Terry, who is a professor at University of Texas at Dallas, and we've been in touch. I knew what he's doing, and the program sounded like really interesting. So I contacted him, and now I'm here and doing a PhD and making art. So.
You say that your videos are autobiographical. How? In what sense do you mean? I mean, like I said, I do video art myself, but I create what I call video paintings, which are more abstract based. What style of kind of digital art do you create?
That's a very good point, actually. No, I would say that I have a narrative, and usually the narrative is not linear, it's non-linear. So it's not that there's a story I'm telling, it's just like kind of surreal, kind of like juxtaposed incident. But I tend to address my cultural background. I'm Persian, I lived in Iran, I grew up in Iran. I spent my teenage years there. I grew up during the Iran-Iraq war.
Oh, wow.
So, that kind of like really affected me because I was 2 when the revolution happened. So I don't remember that, but my parents, obviously their lives was affected by that, so it changed a lot of things for me growing up. And the revolution happened after I was born, so there was a lot of trauma going on while I was growing up, and the fact that especially being a woman in Iran was like a big major issue for me growing up. So I really reference those in my work, sometimes unintentionally, sometimes intentionally. So I play with that a lot in my work.
Could you describe what one of your videos might look like?
There is a lot. I usually have some sort, like there is a story about me. There is a lot of inside outside going on in my work, dealing with public private, because private, especially for a woman, means like a huge deal over there in Iran and with the Iranian culture. So, for example, I had a piece that was about drawers, like what's going on in people's drawers and what that tells about them. And kind of like I was negotiating with the fact that who are you in the outside and inside, and that was because growing up when you're in Iran, even now, like now it's a little better with the new generation, but when I was growing up, who you were outside was very different than who you are inside. Like you might watch satellite TV, for example, but you never say that when you're in school. Your parents will ask you, don't mention that we have satellite. You have to wear the veil, the Persian veil kind of outside, even for school, but then inside you don't do that. So your personality, your identity inside is very different than who you act outside.
Okay. I've seen some of your art, and this is one argument that's been thrown my direction, saying that especially like I said, I used to tell video painting before, and people say you can't have a moving painting, so they say what I do is film. And like I said, I've seen the one of your drawers. Would you consider yourself video art, or would you still consider it on somewhat the same level as film? I mean, do you see like a difference between the two, or are they the same?
I think that I think the boundary is very blurred. It's kind of hard to say which one's which, but I think I borrow more from cinema.
Okay.
Than, playing visually with I don't think none of my videos had the visual, playing with colors or forms as you do in your work, for example. It's usually there's a story I'm telling.
Okay.
Whether it's obvious or it's not, or the viewer is going to make this story, but I'm telling a story.
Okay. Which I see that very much through your work.
Yeah, I think that's...
Which also is another question. You're also currently working on a new project. I think it's called Guilt.
Yeah, which is going like... I don't know.
What, can you give a little background on what Guilt is?
That was kind of, again, going back to my cultural growing up issues, because I feel like my culture gave me a lot of guilt to carry, which that I don't think is so much Persian. It's like universal. A lot of, especially organized religions, they kind of forced you with that guilt that you have to carry. There are things you have to do, otherwise, they're wrong. They're considered wrong. There are feelings that are wrong to even sense. So it started as kind of my own project, but later I noticed, I want to make it more interactive and use my social network and the social media that we're using, especially at school, to kind of see how other people feel about guilt. And so I had a shout out to the social network, Facebook and Twitter, asking people okay, what do you guys feel guilty about? And I got really good responses, but most of them are not really deep feelings. They're very regular daily stuff. I feel guilty about not being a vegetarian, about eating ice cream, about eating that. What was the thing at the?
But I take it you're looking for more deeper things.
Exactly. Okay. So, people who were closer to me usually responded with a more detailed information. So at this point, I have lots of this information. I don't know how to show it so that it's meaningful to me as well. Okay. So I'm kind of it's kind of challenging.
So it's pretty much still a work in progress.
Yeah,
and you're still trying to figure out if you think there's a chance it could go a totally different way than what you're thinking about right now?
Yeah, at some point I might think, okay, forget about all the social network. Let's just see what I have to say. So we'll see. I'm really playing with that at this point.
Before I forget, one of the points of Spirits is it's a happy hour discussion, and I like to come to a place where two people can just come in to chat and be loose and be free about what they want to talk about. So we're at the Elbow Room near downtown Dallas. It's 310 Gaston Avenue, and it's a real good place. They have good food and good full bar. My choice of drinks tonight is Fat Tire. It's a New Belgium ale, which is also the makers of one of my favorites, New Belgium 1554. Mona, what are you drinking?
I'm having Pinot Grigio, which is great white wine. I'm a white wine person, so I had to go with white wine. It's beer is very. I don't drink beer a lot, so.
I like wine too, and white I tend to like a little bit more than red. I like them. I wouldn't say, but almost equal, but white's definitely my preference.
Yeah, so I love white wine. It's just I love the texture, and I can drink 3 or 4 glasses easily, but with red wine, no. Wine and I pass out.
Nice to remember. I'll have to remember that one. Okay, so this past summer, we were both involved in this. We were both out of 50 students that got accepted into the CAD graduate show. And for those who don't know, CAD is the Contemporary Art Dealers of Dallas organization. And they chose 15 out of our 50. And how did it feel to be one of the, I guess by their standards, one of the top, more grad students to be picked out of the whole selection?
It was really awesome, especially after the show. I wasn't sure what type of work I'm going to see when I go to the opening. But the level of work was very interesting, and it was a really good experience. Especially, first of all, knowing some people in Dallas. Especially, I was new. I've been to the galleries, but I didn't know at that time, especially the art people as much. So it was a really good experience to meet those new artists, graduate students from other universities. So it was great.
In that sense, you also, like I said, you're a visual artist. Video artist, visual artist.
Mm-hmm.
What is your stance, I guess, why visual over going more traditional style, painting, sculpting? What was it because of your graphic arts background, or?
Yeah, I would say, I started with painting though, when I was, since I would say I was 10 or something, I started painting. That was one of the things oil painting, that's what I started with. And from 10 to 18 or 19, I used to paint.
Okay.
but it wasn't something that I felt so connected with. With graphic arts, I felt very connected with from the beginning. And then later with video art, I'm kind of like very visual in that sense, but I love the storytelling factor. I love playing with time.
Okay.
But with painting, I feel like it's time frozen, that you're saying, which, it's not obviously true because you can have the story in that painting. But for me, that kind of working with time is really interesting.
Okay. And I guess, where do you see, I mean, a lot of artists today, I guess the older breed, as you might mention, are kind of like are hesitant to involve technology in their in their style. But there's a new breed also that's saying that there is they're too afraid that the technology is going to kill the old style of traditional studio art. But I think it's just evolving. You're still going to have your based sculpting and painting, but it's going to be technological based.
Yeah.
And what do you see the future possibly of like new media art?
That's actually a good question. I'm really glad that now, like at this day and age, we don't have to define ourselves as, okay, I'm a painter, I'm a sculptor, I'm a video artist. You can just be an artist and just do all of these things at the same time. So I really like that we are all like slashes. We are like this and this and this and this at the same time. So who knows, maybe I start painting one day, maybe I do the painting again, and those kind of, I think I look at them as all these different mediums that we use to express ourselves and, say something about our message or whatever that is. So with sculptures, I actually play with 3D environment just with installations in that form, or finding a new platform to show videos. So I play with that idea, but I haven't been into painting much. Collages I do a lot of Photoshop and photo work, but painting I haven't done much. But who knows? I might do it if I feel like that's the best medium to show what I have to say. So.
Okay. Going upon when you talked about guilt with social media, you actually just got accepted into you're a new panel for South by Southwest next year, 2010. You have a panel on. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's about Iran election, which happened in June and July. But it's about women, the role of women in that election, and what happened. Was it like, because during that time, June, July, when the presidential election was happening in Iran and all the unrest happened, a lot of people said that, it was a Twitter revolution just because of the social network, and it allowed, everybody to kind of be exposed to
but there was more than that.
Yeah, and then at some point they said, this is a women's revolution because women are now in the street, and obviously the world hasn't seen Iranian women as much because they're all like kind of invisible at some point. So that kind of meshes it together. And my research, what I'm doing for my PhD, has a lot to do with the role of technology and social media and especially blogosphere, and the fact that women in Iran started to now have a voice and started to change, that cultural inequality that was existing. So I'm addressing all of that in the panel.
Okay, so I got two questions for you. One is, I think one thing that first came to mind was the fact that when the revolution was going on, Twitter said they were going to, and this summer, Twitter said they were going to...
Not the revolution.
Oh, I'm sorry, it was the election.
Demonstrations.
Yeah.
Because it didn't go anywhere, right?
But still, I mean, it was during the election that Twitter said they were going to go down from maintenance. And then the Iran government asked, can you please keep it open because that's their only way of getting... I mean, was that event itself any kind of influence for your panel idea?
Yeah, obviously, yeah. All of those, we're going to address all of those because I have... what we're going to do is talk about the prior to election. That's actually the majority of the panel, talking about how Iranian new generation, the young generation, especially women, started using technology, social media to get their word across and to start changing things. And then how that relates to the Iran election and them, starting doing all these demonstrations and kind of like grabbing the attention of all the media, news media outside Iran. And then what was the role of Twitter in that sense? What did Twitter do? And then, we're going to look at the graphs of how the world was spread in Twitter. Was it because of the other people outside Iran that started retweeting things, and then that's how it started going? Or really people from Iran tweeted? Because there's all